This should give you guys a little prompt.
Are you going to do like a YouTuber intro of, "Hey, what's up, everybody?
What's up, everybody?
Don't forget to hit that notification bell."
Real Peter McKinnon, like, no. um, I, I'll introduce. I am gonna. So yeah. Let's turn this down a little bit. All right. Let's just get going. So the game plan is. Oh, there's someone else coming in.
Hey, Elena.
Hey, Elena.
Oh, is she still connecting to audio?
Oh, all good. Hey, Elena. Okay, so the game plan for today is I have a presentation. It's like a PowerPoint presentation I'm going to go through. I'm super excited to get to share this with everybody. Thank you again for being here. I'm recording, as you know, as you've all been prompted. My plan is to record this so that I can kind of grow myself, and then I do plan on making it available for people, but I'm not going to sell it. I just want to make it available if people want to watch it. What I'm sharing with you it's a combination of research that I've been doing independently for a long time, and I just think as the more I learn about it, the more excited I get about it, and the more I feel like I just need to share it with people. I feel like it can be helpful. So I'm hoping that by the end of all this, that everybody's learned something, and hopefully you walk into your normal life and maybe a new perspective happens. So that'd be the ultimate win. If you guys just start walking through your life and you just start asking a new question about what you're doing in your life and about like how you're living your life, that's like the coolest win that I could ever ask for. So I'll start with sharing my screen. Oh, look at that, it's right there. Just pulls it up. Okay, can you guys all see my screen? Great. Okay, so the title of this presentation is How to See Who You Are, How Our Identity is Reflected All Around Us All the Time. And my goal for everyone is, or my intended result, wow, how, can I move that? Oh, I can't see my mouse anymore. Oh well. My goal for everyone is for everybody to be able to more objectively understand why your life is the way it is, and then how to change it if you want. And I intend, so here's my end goal. I'm putting my agenda right at the front so that you kind of already know where I'm going. I intend to convince you through reason to identify more with your natural bioelectric field rather than your physical body. And that might sound a little strange at first, but the goal of this whole presentation is I'm going to show you why that's actually a very natural way of being. So here's a first little roadmap. So if you imagine like we're going on a road trip together, we're going on a road trip and we have our first base camp. Our first base camp, or we're meeting up before we really start, is where we're going to be talking about a little bit about atoms and electrons and energy, and then we'll move through molecules and magnetism, our human energy body, then our emotions, how all objects and experiences must harmonize with our emotions, the emotional energy scale, and then you can use personality analysis systems to help you navigate more effectively through life with referencing some example systems. And I'll give you a sample analysis and then we'll bring it all together. So the whole thing should take 45 minutes. I timed this out the other day. It took me 45 minutes to get through everything. So we should be able to cruise through this. We'll definitely be done by 3 o'clock. And then if anybody wants to have questions, we can do that for sure. All right, so to start, we're jumping back to 8th grade science class. There is, we all know that atoms are the building block of the universe, right? Like everything that we see, experience, is made of atoms ultimately. I don't know if you guys have ever thought about how small an atom really is, but there is, I apologize for I didn't put the proper picture into the slide, but I found a microscopic picture of where someone zoomed in using an electron microscope on a speck of dust, and they were able to, through their equation, equate that there was approximately 27,000 atoms in a speck of dust. And electrons are 1,000 times smaller than an atom, right? So, and that was proven by this guy named Sir Joseph J. Thomson back in 1897. So we know that electrons are small. And the other thing that was proved in 1926 by Erwin Schrödinger is this idea that electrons are part particle and part waveform. So that means that they, where the particle comes into existence depends on when and where the observer comes into factor. So, this is where the whole idea of like quantum realities and quantum dimensions came from. This idea that like, whatever you can imagine is a thing that existed at some point in the space-time continuum. There's like infinite universes, Rick and Morty, right? The whole idea of Rick and Morty, of how you can jump from universe to universe. This is where that came from, right? So what is crucial to know about this moment, though, is that electrons, because of how they orbit around atoms, there is a natural electric field that is created around atoms and molecules. And this is what gives them their sense of magnetism. So atoms and molecules are held together through a magnetic force. There are 4 different primary forces of nature that are recognized. New development has talked about a 5th one, but to stay on topic, we'll stay on these primary 4 that are commonly known. First, gravity is, that's, gravity is gravity. It's the thing that keeps us on planet Earth, right? It gives planets its gravitational pull. We all know that. The strong interaction is the thing that keeps atoms together in their magnetic bond, keeps molecules and atoms linked together. The weak interaction, or the weak force, is reference to what causes for a gradual decay, where this is like how free radicals affect our body and cause for a gradual breakdown of the cells that hold us all together, et cetera. And then electromagnetism, this is the thing that causes objects and things to be able to leave each other in their harmonious state, in a sense. So I heard, one physicist, he gave the simple explanation of like, electromagnetism is the reason why your book that's sitting on the table doesn't just go through the table and into the earth. Even though gravity is way stronger than electromagnetism, but because like all objects have their own electromagnetic field that have to be respected, your book is able to sit on top of the table rather than go through the table. So everything has an electromagnetic field. Everything just as a sheer consequence of being made of atoms and having electrons that work around it. So everything has an electromagnetic field, and these can be measured, and they have been measured, and they've been proven to exist. So now, with that groundwork established, it's easy to understand that human beings also have a bioelectric energy field around them. We all have. This has been measured, and it's called the Hertz electromagnetic field, or a toroidal field. This is, how some people call it our aura. this is in nonverbal communication. This is, you know, there are 4 different types of proximities to a person. There's your intimate space, your friend, which is your 1 to 2 feet, your friendly conversational space, which is your your personal space, which is your 2 to 4 feet, your friendly space, which is your 4 to 8 feet, and then your public space, which is anywhere from 8 to 20 feet. So these are all kind of loosely talking about our aura. And this field, this guy named David Hawkins, he called it your attractor field. It can be visualized here with the toroidal field. So what this is all talking about is we can feel when something or someone comes into our field. You can also just think of it as like your field of awareness. How about that? When something or someone comes into our field of awareness, we can tell, usually. Someone gets close enough to you, it's usually within, arm's reach and double that for your field. You can tell that someone's entered your field. You can usually, if you're sensitive to it, you might just feel it as hairs on the back of your neck. What this does is when someone enters your field, if you think of your body as like a human battery, your battery powers that field and energizes all the atoms and molecules that come into contact with it. So you have an effect and they have an effect on you. That's all that's saying. You have an effect and they have an effect on you. Just through sheer like electricity permeating your body. Well, there is a law of, in the metaphysical world, it's called the law of harmony, in the Hermetic principles, I mean. But what I kind of want to rephrase it a little bit to be more of referencing the law of resonance. So what I want you guys to think more of is this idea that like what you bring into your field of awareness must harmonize or resonate with your natural radiant energy, your radiant field, in order for it to stay there. In order for it to stay. I say that specifically because it's very possible for you to have an experience that is different than your radiant field. But in order for it to stay as a constant, that's more referencing your radiant energy. So as a visual example, I have this, the person merging onto the expressway here. It's a really simple thing. Like if you have, before you're coming onto the expressway, you know that you have the speed up ramp, right? You have the on ramp. That's where you got to get up to speed. You can't just merge on the expressway going 25 miles an hour. You have that extra little time to get up to 70 miles an hour before you merge, and then you merge safely and effectively, right? So that happens for everything in your life. If you think about how, this is why there is training at a job. When you start a new job, they have to train you in order to be able to operate your job effectively. And then depending on how quickly you're able to get up to speed within the organization, that dictates how you're able to move throughout the organization. So an organization has its own energy field. That's where they're bringing about stuff. They're creating things in the world. You have to get up to speed with them and the way that they do things. And if you don't, then you don't stay. So, and if you do get up to speed, if you do get up to speed is just referencing up to their speed, whatever their speed is, then you are in harmony, and then you stay. This is, as some people, so a lot of the context that I've spent a lot of time, I got introduced to the idea of the law of attraction back when I was 16. And what always drove me crazy was how, when people talk about how the law of attraction and how you can, influence the world with your thoughts and your feelings. And I kind of just I just wanted to know more. And what I found is that this, to me, more accurately describes it. And that what you're able to bring about or attract into your life, just kind of like what David Hawkins says, he calls it your attractor field, that references back to your resonance, your natural state of vibration, your energy field, your bioelectric energy field. It sets all the atoms around you into motion at a certain rate of vibration, and everything that comes into your experience has to harmonize with it. It has to get up to speed with it, and vice versa. Your atoms need to get up to speed with them, and they need to get up to speed with you in order for you both to stay in sync, right? Now, first of all, how's this? Are we all holding? Are we all still together here, or is anything not making sense so far? I'm hearing silence, so all's good. I'm seeing head nods. All right, great. So the next thing I want to introduce to you with that's still in line with this is this idea that our emotional state actually impacts the state of our energy field. And so this is where it kind of comes into, we're starting to get past moving up the dimensions. So if you look at, we live in a much more than just a three-dimensional world. Three-dimensional world being, this is an object with length, width, and height dimension to it, right? Fourth dimension is where time comes into play. This is where this object moves from this place to this place. It took a second to do that. That is an introduction of time. That's the fourth dimension, right? But if this object, the introduction of fifth dimension is that this object could have gone from here to here, or here to here, or here to here, or here to here. It took a second to go from each spot, right? But the fifth dimension is seeing up above where they all went and seeing it being able to be in all those spots at the same time, right? So we're talking more about fifth dimensional and higher, where your emotional state here is it causes your natural bioelectric energy field to radiate a certain way, to where the things and experiences and thoughts that you bring in, that you receive, they must harmonize with your natural state in order for them to stay. You can be introduced to foreign thoughts, but it won't stay if it doesn't harmonize with your person, if it doesn't resonate with your spirit. And what your type of thoughts tend to radiate around, those will harmonize with your emotional state. I think of, as an actor, I've trained probably close to 10 years as an actor. And so much of acting is, you present a neutral vessel, you learn the script, and then you develop a character, and then you go live that character within a given circumstance. Your script changes depending on the character, and the emotional state of your character will be reflected in the words. And then you have to deconstruct why your character is feeling the way that they're feeling based on the script and based on the given circumstances of what's happening. So is it not reasonable to ascertain that that happens for us all? That we will choose the words that we use based on our emotional state? But here's the thing. Not only do we choose the words that we use based on our emotional state, the things that we choose to respond to are also the things that we choose to give attention to are also going to harmonize with our emotional state, because that way it gives us the reason to say the words that we want to say anyway. Because we only want to say those words because that's how we feel. And so we need to find a reason to say those words. We need to find a reason to think those thoughts, because we already feel this way. And so we need to, so what's a reason why I feel this way? I feel angry because X, or I feel happy because X. And so therefore, this is the big thing. It comes back to my big goal, the thing I'm trying to convince you of. I'm trying to convince you to start seeing that your attractor field is a more accurate reflection of who you are than your physical body. Because if your physical body can only touch whatever you're sensing with your five senses, but your electric field, your bioelectric field, can touch everything in your 360-degree awareness and has just as significant an impact. And everything that comes into your state must harmonize with and stay in your state, must harmonize with your electro field. Therefore, it is more accurate to identify with your attractor field rather than your physical body. Your physical body just gets to witness and participate with what your field brought into itself, which is really, really fascinating to me. Period. That is like such a cool thing to think about. So, okay. So since your body is you're a living battery for your electromagnetic field, and everything in your field must harmonize with it, what you experience in your field is a reflection of who you are at that moment in time. And then my reference down here is, by the way, I'm sorry, my references have been at the bottom. Those have just been some of my references down at the bottom there. But in this article, I found it fascinating. So it's about perception is not reality, but rather a reflection of who you are. And so what that's saying is, the whole perception is reality is a perspective that's common, but the way that is different is to say that, so this is a face mask. Reality is, this is a face mask. But the story that I tell myself as to if this is a good face mask or a bad face mask depends on who I am. That's more of a reflection of the natural harmonious state of the emotions that tend to permeate my body, is the difference as to if this is a stupid face mask. I'm so pissed that I have to wear this all the time, and versus I wear the face mask to keep myself safe, and keep the people around me safe. And then when I'm in a private place, I take it off. It's like, it's not a big deal. So it's the emotional state is everything. Therefore, I come back to, therefore, it is more accurate to identify with your attractor field than your physical body. So in these portraits here, I found this portrait here of the guy holding the globe as a really useful way to kind of illustrate that. But another kind of fun way, do you guys remember watching the TV show Room Raiders?
No.
No. It was, so if you haven't seen it, it was a great show back in the 90s, early 2000s on MTV, where it'd be a person is trying to pick somebody else to go on a date with. So you have the guy or girl who is the primary date selector. They're trying to choose someone to go on their date with, and then they're going through 3 different people's rooms to kind of try to piece together who that person is without seeing who they are. without seeing their physical body, right? That is actually a perfect way of illustrating this concept of who that person is on the inside, as reflected based on all the things and places and people and objects and the way that the room is organized. It's all a reflection of what's going on in that person's field, which carries with them wherever they go in the world. And so it's more accurate to identify with your attractor field than your physical body. Your physical body just gets to witness and participate with what your field brought into itself. Because so everything that we experience must harmonize with our field. Here's the thing, the other thing to remember, everybody has a field. Everything has a field. So they're all contributing to each other, and they all work together to bring about what one is experiencing and what you are bringing to somebody else's field. So this is why you join one organization versus a different one. One you more harmonize with rather than a different one. One type of sport you harmonize with rather than a different one. One type of thought you harmonize with better than a different one. One type of hobby you prefer to another. This kind of has to do with your personality design, but also your electromagnetic field. Now, the reason why I got so excited and why I was like, I have to start like sharing this with people is because I found this guy named David Hawkins. I referenced him earlier. And he equated a numerical value to the emotional scale. Same emotional scale. This one that we see here, this is just it's a graphic that somebody made. But this idea of the emotional scale, it's easy to understand that some emotions feel better than others. Some emotions feel better than others. Some emotions, they feel heavier than others, right? What this guy did is he was able to, he used kinesiology to put together a scale that's incredibly specific and equate a numerical value to the scale on a 0 to 1,000 point scale. And identifying a little bit of, so here's sometimes my cursor disappears. I don't know why, but dang it. I was gonna like put my finger on it. Like you guys could see that. That wouldn't really help at all. But so if you go, if you go to the emotion, so the emotion is, so the scale is in the middle. The emotion and the level, they're kind of on the right and left of the scale. Those represent the emotion that we would describe it as, and then the level as it's named. And then it identifies the life view and the God view, and the process of what life looks like at somebody who is living in that level. So what I find so fascinating about this is that you're able to start gamifying the process of your emotional development. You're able to start seeing that life, if you're living life within a certain emotional field, you can almost attribute a scorecard to it. And which kind of leads, I added this slide in just literally right before this, because so I just want everybody to take a moment. I'm going to take a moment of silence to let you guys do this. Because when you just look at this chart, you can kind of understand that these are, in his book, Power versus Force, this is an emotional chart that has to do with identifying the different types of perspective of emotions that have to do with the same type of emotional energy. That'll make more sense. I'm just going to take a moment of silence, take a moment and just like look at a few of the things that stand out to you and notice how you feel about them. So you can kind of see that it's almost, it just shares two different perspectives of, it's like two different sides of the same coin for every thing, for every type of emotion. So if we look at like at the bottom left, just so it's just because it's easy to identify, democratic versus dictatorial. They both have to do with leadership, but one is very much of open-handed, let's come together and let's work together, and one is like, this is the way, follow me or get out. One is trying to force you to listen, and the other one is using a natural power of people coming together and choosing. Right? One naturally feels better than the other, and that's what I find. So like why this still works to me. It's like we can immediately understand why some emotions feel better than others. The thing that's new is the idea of like attributing a numerical value to it. So this kind of leads me to like, so here's the perspective I'm trying to introduce, this idea that like the game of life. If we're able to attribute a point value, a numerical value towards leveling up the emotional scale, then theoretically, you could make a game out of leveling up the emotional scale. Now, so the game of life therefore becomes, how high can you level up your consciousness before your body dies? So for those of you who don't know, the graphic at the lower right-hand corner is from this game called Fallout. It's a very fun game. As you play the game, you use certain skills to do certain things in the game. You can earn points and you level up your avatar, you level up your character so that you can do more of that thing better, which is naturally reflective of the real world. And what I'm trying to identify is like how much the real world really does work like that. Now, the key detail that I want to identify and make sure to say is this idea that it's not necessarily bad to be feeling bad. It's also not necessarily good to be feeling good. It's just part of the emotional experience. The reason why that's so, to me, it's easy to understand is because that's how it works when you're acting in a show, when you're acting in a movie. You are literally cast to play a character who is living that character's life, which means you're presenting a neutral vessel and you're going to live life through those given circumstances and respond emotionally how that person would respond. How do I admit this person? Oh, where she went? Someone was just, my cursor disappeared, as some of you can see. Oops. This is all being recorded. And I can't see where the cursor is to make it go away. Okay.
I think it's because Zoom has a box that like its screen records the box that you're in. Maybe that's why. Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Oh. Okay.
It could be your screen share is what I'm saying. What is what messing with your, or Heather might also know.
Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, we'll continue. If she comes back, I'll try to figure it out. Okay, so it's not bad to feel bad. It's not good to feel good. It's all part of the emotional experience. And all the emotions are valid. The emotions, if you're having an emotional response, you're justified. If you're feeling bad for a reason, you're justified. You don't need to feel bad that you feel bad. It's okay to feel bad. The thing is, you don't want to live that feeling all the time. You don't want it to be your identity. It's okay to feel angry at times. You don't want to be defined as angry. It's okay to be happy. Maybe you do want to be defined as happy. But you don't necessarily want to be Pollyanna that such joyful happiness. The world is perfect. Nothing is wrong. That's just not realistic, right? So all of the emotions are valid and they're good for you to experience, but it's where you live most of the time that affects your radiant field. And what I want to identify, so if you look at your life, like, so if you're playing a video game, you've got a role-playing game, you usually, unless you're watching it in first-person view, usually you can see the frame, and the frame you see the whole avatar, and you can see what's happening immediately around it. So that's like how you can almost picture your life like that, and then see how the things that are happening around your avatar are reflective of your emotional state and reflective of your field, your natural field. And so therefore, if your avatar, your body and your personality, they're designed to work a certain way, if you'll be more successful at the game if you work more harmoniously with how you're naturally designed to work, with how your avatar is naturally designed to play. Which is why I think that there's value in understanding your personality and doing these personality analysis. I've experimented with all of these. I've researched all of them. The DISC one is very popular with corporate breakdowns. StrengthsFinder is another one that's popular with corporate business, but it's more about, it identifies your top 5 strengths and identifies all 84 of your strengths within their definition system, and it organizes them. Myers-Briggs, I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with. That's more based in psychology, the Carl Jung system, or no, did I get that right? Cool, thank you. And human design is a little bit more esoteric. It is, I got introduced to that out in Los Angeles. It's my current favorite because of how specific it is. The Enneagram is very popular as well. It's very popular with Christian groups, but it's also just like, not just Christian groups, it's also popular in the arts. But it's another breakdown. And then there's the traditional zodiac, which you may or may not be researched in, but it's very popular nonetheless. And so the idea being that you can figure out what your personality, how your personality, your human avatar is more designed to work, and then play the game with how you're naturally designed to work so that you can level up the emotional scale more effectively. So I wanted to do a demonstration with that, how that might work. So this is a human design chart. This is my human design chart. I have spent more time and money researching human design than I really care to admit. But I've been studying this for a few years now. And I just find it so fascinating. And I've probably, thank you, Sucha, I see you. I've probably done over 50 other readings of other people. And it always is so fascinating to me to see how well it seems to resonate with them as well. But so say if you take a human design chart, this is your body graph. You type in the minute of your date of birth and your geographic location, and then it gives you a chart like this. It has, do I have my cursor back? No. You can see there are all these different shapes. They all represent the chakras. And you have, if it's colored in, that is reference to a defined or a fixed way of processing stimulus, versus if it's white, then that refers to it's an undefined or a non-fixed way of processing stimulus, which just means that it changes depending on who you're coming into contact with. There are 4 basic types. There's generators, projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. There's a 5th type of manifesting generator. They all have different strategies for how to respond in life. So say how to be successful in life. So you get this chart, and this tells you a little bit of how you naturally function in the world. Your defined things kind of reference, those are the things that are most consistent. You naturally see the world this way. You naturally respond to the world this way. The reason why I like this chart so much is because it also shows you where you're not self or where you're most likely unhealthy in the world, which is most likely for most people where their point of negative emotions comes into play. So the reason why we tend to live in our negative emotions is if we spend too much time dealing with how we're our not self, as human design calls it. So, for example, someone with, so I have a defined head center, which is the yellow triangle at the top, which means that, which just means I tend to be asking a lot of questions. I tend to constantly be asking certain questions. I tend to have a common filter of what's important versus what's not. I'm never really wondering if something is important or not. I can usually figure that out pretty quick. Like, is this important for me to know or not? Depending on what question I'm trying to answer. I'm never wondering if this is interesting or not, or important or not, or is this inspiring or not, because I know what I'm looking for. Whereas what's different is, that, so the smallest triangle, I've got a small triangle there that's got a little red line coming out of it. That's the ego center, the heart center. So most of the population, I think it's like 67% or so of the population have an undefined ego center, which is how that manifests for people who are not self, is a constant feeling of need to prove how worthy one is for X. You are worthy of the job. Look at how many degrees I've got. I am worthy of the promotion. Look at how much work I've been doing for the company. Please let me do this thing because I've proven how worthy I am. I've spent so much time proving how worthy I am of doing this thing. And the wisdom, this is why this is a wisdom that is, so refreshing for people to hear, and we often hear it in religious teachings, is this idea that you're already worthy. You don't need to prove anything to anybody. You're already worthy. And that's where everybody has their own things that they need to learn. The G center, so the reason why even this information has been so fascinating to me, the G center is that diamond in the middle, and the solar plexus center is the triangle that's on the right-hand side, the white one. Both of those are completely open, which is also why. So the other thing about the not self is that it's kind of referred to, some people think of it as like the curse of their life. I know for me, I definitely have many a times. Until I started to like lean into it now. I'm like, okay, fine. If I am this way, then what does that mean? And how do I make it work for me? Instead of being frustrated with it or feeling bitter about it, I'm like, fine, if I am that way, how do I win? That's kind of how I started to change it more. The solar plexus thing has to do with emotions. So for me, with my design, and like 50% of people have an undefined emotional system. This means that your emotions change depending on who you come into contact with, depending on what pressure you come into. Because when you come into contact with another person, different centers will be activated, and then therefore you will have a different response. So our not self-center, our open centers are our point of wisdom potential, because those are the things where we're going to be most curious to learn more. We're going to be most frustrated that why isn't this more like this? Why? I've spent so much time. So I have an open throat center, which is uncommon, which pisses me off a little bit, but I've gotten used to it. It's okay. It's my uniqueness. Um, the open throat center. So I've got the yellow triangle and then the green triangle, and then there's the lines pointing down to it. And then there's the throat center. The throat center is the square right there. The throat center is like the point of manifestation. That's how we speak into the world. That's how we bring about everything. All the other signs, all the other chakras, they all point back to the throat center, because that's how we carry ourselves into the world. It's the point of like how we manifest what's happening in our minds. When you have an undefined throat center, then that means that you don't necessarily have the energy to just manifest. You have to work with other people. You have to, as opposed to like a manifesting generator, they don't need anybody. They don't need anybody to help them. They can just do the thing themselves. But I have spent so much time researching how to produce. How do you produce a film? Why? Because it's hard for me to just do it. I have to research it. Right? So anyway, I don't want to go too far into the human design track, because that can become that's a whole talk by itself. I've spent probably over 1,000 hours researching human design. It's a huge thing. But one of the cool things I will identify that the science that it's based on is this idea of neutrinos, which is a proven in the law of physics that at every given moment of our lives, we have millions and millions and millions of neutrinos that are beaming down on us and from the stars and from the solar system. And what this is based on is this idea that when we are birthed into the world, that those neutrinos that were flying through our body at that moment have an impact as to our personality and our human body design, and therefore how one operates more effectively and adequately in the world. So this comes back to the reason why I like human design is it tells you how to function well, but also it tells you where your points of frustration and bitterness are going to be. So it tells you what lessons you can learn and how to let go of those things that are making you feel bad. Because ultimately it comes back to, what is the game? How high can you level up your consciousness before your body dies? Which is based on your emotional scale, so how can you level up the scale as quickly? And if the things that are holding you back are your bad emotions, your negative emotions, how can you let go of those? Well, if you can understand how your body is designed to function well, you can do more of what you do naturally well and do less of what you do less naturally well, and let go of your points of frustration that are holding you back. Because the more that you spend time ruminating about the things that are holding you back, the worse you're going to feel. And then therefore, the more consistent your emotions are going to be low on the lower end of the scale, which is going to affect everything that you attract into your life, which is going to therefore change everything that you focus on and see and bring about into your life, because it must harmonize with your natural field in order for you to experience it, in order for it to stay. So if you want success in your life, you need to, like whatever success is, whether it be financial success or relationship success, or you want a better house, you want a better car, you want whatever, like it has to harmonize with your body, which means that, and all these things, they have their own different ranking up the scale, whatever success looks like. So you have to, this is where, like in the law of attraction, the biggest thing is like they tell you to meditate so that you stop focusing on the things that make you mad and let your natural self level up. Literally, like if you ever listen to Abraham Hicks, which there's a lot of content from her out there, Abraham Hicks teaches feel better, and then the things in your life will get better. This is why. Because you have a natural energy scale that affects everything you come into contact with. And everything that comes into your energy field must harmonize and resonate with your natural scale. So the game of life is how high can you level up your consciousness before your body dies? Use the personality analysis system to figure out how you operate more effectively. I prefer human design because it also tells you how you function in your not self. And so if you can let go of those things, then you can more easily level up. So bringing it all together. Oh, I forgot to take that last bullet point out. My bad. The law. I still like the law of attraction. I just don't like the idea of just. I don't like the idea of just relying on your thoughts. Your thoughts are a significant component, sure, but it comes down to your emotions, and like your thoughts will respond to what you point your body to respond to. So what happens in your life is ultimately coming back to what resonates with your spirit, what resonates with your field, your attractor field. And so where we went, just to bring it all, we started at base camp. Atoms and energy make up everything. All molecules are held together by magnetic forces. Our human bodies naturally have a field, and our emotional state is indicative of our state of our energy field. All objects and experiences. The other thing about that, all objects and people and experiences and perspectives must harmonize with your energetic state in order for you to experience them repeatedly. I would add that word repeatedly. I come back to the whole multiple dimensions thing, three-dimensional, fourth dimension, 5-dimension. What I'd like to introduce is this idea that thoughts are things, that experiences are things, perspectives, they're things according to fifth dimensional consciousness. They're not a physical thing in the sense that you can hold it in your hand, but in that it is you can receive a thought, and the thoughts that you receive are reflective of your emotional state, your energy field. Because you're a battery, you attract into these things depending on where you are. And you can, so to continue moving on, how you can use the emotional energy scale to see what's reflected in your life, because everything that you experience must harmonize with your spirit. You can use the personality analysis systems to make your life better with some examples, etc. And that's it. Liffin. That's the presentation. How do I turn off screen sharing? Can I? Okay. Pause share. No, that's not right. Stop share. Haha. We're still on? Okay, good. Cool. So thank you, Grace. Appreciate the little. How was that? Like, did that make sense? Did you guys follow along? Are there any questions? I'd love some feedback.
It was great. It was a really cool combination of ideas. And I think your presentation is very well organized in how you've kind of structured it out, with kind of stepping from the physical into how do we get then into the energy and talking about emotion and talking about thought. It's a good combination of things. Great job.
Awesome. Thank you. I am so glad.
And a prompt question for future talks, maybe.
Yeah.
That I have is, how does this correlate with the boundaries that we have with one another, not just physically, but in terms of our thoughts and our emotions and how we react with one another or interact with one another? That's something that I'll be chewing on, I think.
Yeah, that's a good question. So just to make sure I understand the question right, because I also want to incubate that, is how does this all affect the type of boundaries that we set with one another? My initial response is it would come down to our boundaries would be set, therefore, based on the things that we value. And the things that we value are like dependent upon what we have chosen to associate, to identify ourselves with, like what emotional states we identify with, but also the types of hobbies that we have chosen to value based on how our human is designed. But that's no matter what, that's just, it's almost like I'm telling myself that so that I can like remember it later and reflect on it more later and like build it out later. Bam. Cool.
Hey, Charles,
Yeah.
do you mind sharing your graph again, your human design graph? And or where we can get like information about it? Like where can we do the quiz? If I don't think I have mine, so
Yeah, absolutely. Here,
got to go
first,
look for it. And also, can you talk about yours?
yes. So I'm trying to make it so you can click on it. You can go to mybodygraph.com. There you go. And that's where you can go to get a free human design chart. And just heads up, it won't like, it gives you the chart for free. And then the way that they make their money is they teach you about the chart.
Oh.
There is plenty of free information online though. You just got to go to Google. Just got to go to Google, and people have written lots of articles about what the different centers mean and what the different types mean. And so for generators, which most people are generators, one of the things that's really cool about generators is a generator's strategy for success is to respond. So you respond to stimulus. And the way that a generator naturally responds is usually reflective of the guttural sounds that happen within your body. So you see something, somebody asks you, do you want pizza for lunch or do you want pizza for dinner? You might respond naturally with like a uh-huh or an uh-uh. And you literally, it's like, I swear to God, the Ra Uru, who he literally teaches, like, you need to be able to hear yourself, like recognize that you just made that sound. And that's your body telling you what to do. If you can hear it, maybe if you didn't make the sound, but you felt it in your person, you felt it and you heard it that way, then recognize that you had that response, and that's how you, bam, that's you harmonizing with something that's good for you, versus like that. That's your body's telling you like, I don't harmonize with that. So that's how that works for generators. With projectors, the other common one, that their strategy is recognition and then waiting for the invitation. So for projectors, they need to be like, because projectors focus on one person at a time so much, like they kind of base their energy based on who they're talking to. They need to be recognized and invited. So literally being told almost in varying ways. It can be as formal as this or not, but it can be, I appreciate so much what you said about here. Will you come do this? So that in different layers needs to happen in order for a projector to be operating correctly. This might be, hey, do you want to come get, literally saying like, hey, Sucha, do you want to come get lunch at the pizza place? Rather than how a generator can be, which is just a group of generators can just say like, hey, everybody, who wants to go get pizza? And generators would be like, me. But the projector needs to be asked specifically, hey, Sucha, do you want to go get pizza with us? Like that is the difference. And here's what's so cool as well is that as the more you understand this, is like the more you see it as just like, oh, that's just how I am naturally. That's like, oh, I didn't. So for me, I'm a projector. So the way that this happens for me, I'm in a group, right? If I'm in a group conversation, if the group conversation is happening, the group's talking, it's mostly generators anyway, because most people are generators. The group conversation's happening, everybody's contributing to the group conversation. Right. Everybody's contributing to the group conversation. If I'm like, the way that I'll talk, like if I start talking to somebody, like I'll start talking to a specific person, and then that person and I will end up having our own conversation within the group conversation. So it doesn't matter if it's like across the table or right next to me, but that's, it can be within the field of conversation, or it can be its own variation. But I can never, I've tried, it just doesn't work. It always ends up like, I've tried with the whole group conversation. There's 5 people contributing to one topic. Everybody's talking together. I might say a specific thing, and then all of a sudden one person responds to me, and then we're just talking all the time. I don't know how, don't know why, but that's how, well, I know why now. It's because I'm a projector. That's how generators respond, and vice versa. So it's just really, so the more, bam, Caitlin, I received your message. It's the more you understand it, the more it's more like, I'm just like, oh, that's fascinating. And then the other thing as well, and I'll stop because we're going over time, is that it makes one be less frustrated and feel, so for generators, their emotional negative response is frustration. For projectors, it's bitterness. You feel, so the more I understand this, the less bitter I feel that people don't get it. Like, why aren't people inviting me more? Like they didn't recognize how good I was at the thing. They didn't invite me to do the thing. It's because, bam, FOMO. Yeah. So bam, generators, they might invite you for sure, but generators, like the idea is suggested, and then generators just jump in. Projectors need to be invited specifically. So when I understand that difference, it's like you don't get as upset. Like, oh, well, that's just how they work. That's just how I work. That's just fine. It's all fine. It's all good. It all works. And then comes back to the ultimate thing of it's not, because, we're talking so much about human design, but like, what's the big point? The big point is to let go of the bad emotions so that we can feel better, which affects our overall attractor field, which affects everything in our life. If we feel better, then everything that we experience in life becomes better.
This is just a quick little random correlation, but I remember being told, I want to say it was when I was in Fiji and like a young 20 something, but like someone told me that you can walk through life like with your hand closed or with your hand opened. And that's kind of how I think of my energy and how I've thought about that ever since. It's like, am I letting things into my realm, and am I open to things, or am I closed off to things right now? It's just kind of something that seemed relevant.
Yeah, it is relevant. And I think it's a perfect illustration as well. And it also makes sense, that like perfectly makes sense for generators too, because generators have a enveloping energy. It's very welcoming for everybody. And projectors are more like pointed, which comes back to, because why can generators contribute to a group conversation? Because there's everybody's contributing to the energy, right? Where projectors need to focus on one person at a time.
As a projector, have you felt misread as being too intense?
Yes. And maybe I am intense. I for sure could be
That
intense.
wasn't an accusation either. I was just thinking that the pointedness, I was like, I thought of who might be projectors in my life and how they usually are like bolder and stronger and to the point, and like direct, and not a more quieter, well, not quiet, but an anxious soul like myself. Yeah.
Well, so that's an interesting way to put that. I wouldn't necessarily say that all projectors are are going to be intense in the same way that you just described. So like there are a couple lines in particular I think of. Like there's one line that's there's like in that one reference chart that we were talking, or in the emotional chart, there was like democratic versus dictatorial. So there is a line in your human design chart. One of them has to do with democratic leadership, and the other one has to do with the king or queen type of leadership, that more like, I am the ruler, it's my way, period, right? Those lines can happen whether you're a projector or a generator or manifestor or reflector. Yes, even with a reflector. Reflectors are the weird ones. There's less than 1%. I've never met a reflector. If anyone meets a reflector, send them to me. I want to talk to them, just see what life is like for them. There's less than 1% of them. They're the only ones that have no definitions of their centers. They're the only ones. So I can't even imagine what life is like. But everybody can have one of those lines, and they're going to respond to leadership in a different way, which means, so, you know, a person who's very much like, I'm the ruler, they're going to be more bombastic than somebody who's not, right? Donald Trump has that line. Fun little fact. When I learned that,
Strong projector energy.
like, but it's just so like, the more again, like the more I understand it, the more I'm like, I don't get upset. I'm just like, oh, that's why. Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. You know, another person who has it, I found really fascinating, a lot of celebrities who are also producers. So like Will Smith has that, the king queen line. It's in human design terms is more effectively known as like the hunter or huntress. They're the ones who are responsible for going and getting the resources and then distributing it to the people, right? So to their people. So most people, or a lot of celebrities who own their own production companies, like Tom Cruise, Will Smith, who there's a, I think even Margot Robbie, because she started her own production company. They have this line. Okay, I'm going off on tangents. Sorry, everybody. Okay, yeah, so you can look up your design chart at mybodygraph.com for free. And I'm thinking what I want to start doing is I want to start a study group. You guys are definitely welcome to participate if you'd like, but I don't want to, hold on. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take a risk. Just show my desktop. My only risk is that I just don't know if I'm going to lose my cursor. But so I want to start breaking down and do more. I've been really diving in and research on the whole levels of energy and breaking down more of like what they will, like what's a normal experience for somebody who's living that energy field, living that emotional state. And then seeing like what are the normal types of phrases and experiences and hobbies that person is going to have when they're at that level versus a different level. And it's really fascinating. The more I understand it, the more I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just so much of a game of life this is becoming. So this is the stuff I'm going to continue to develop, but I'll make sure to share that so that if people want to participate, they can participate. Stop the share, come back. Cool. All right. Any other questions? You guys are awesome. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Caitlin, and thank you, Sucha and Heather. This has been so much fun.
Thanks, Charles. This is fun.
Thank you, Charles. This was really cool.
I will make sure to, wherever I post this, I'll send you guys a link. So if you want to watch it back, you can. And thank you again. I'm so happy to have been able to talk about this and share this. This has been like in development for a few years. But I'm thinking I think I want to like write a book about this. This is and continue, because like the more I understand producing, the more I understand, as I was telling Sutra earlier, I'm like, as I see, I think of like, if I were making a film and I wanted to showcase somebody experiencing this type of field, how would that reflect in their living environment and like the setting that the film would take place in, the scene would take place? How would this affect their clothing choice? How would this affect their makeup choice? How would this affect their physical attributes? How would this affect the words that they use and the way that they use those words? So I want to continue to elaborate on all that. And it's all starting right here. So
Thank you very much, Charles. Very much appreciated.
bam. Thank you, Nick. And
I
thank
look
you all.
forward to the next one, Charles.
Awesome. Appreciate
Yeah,
you.
do something again soon. This is very interesting.
Awesome.
dope.
Thank you. And I'm so glad. And I appreciate you all. You guys are awesome. I appreciate you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll
And we'll
go
see you
fill
later.
out my birth chart.
Bam. Get it. 100%. All right. We'll see you.